because somehow. Um, so, broken games, or how I stopped worrying and learned to let games happen, if you get the quote. Um, First of all, I'm Nicolo Tedeschi. I founded this, what I like to call micro interaction design studio with my friend Pietro Rigiriva in Milan a couple of years ago. And we are now based nowhere, since we have no studio and we're just two people and two computer. Actually one computer because mine was stolen a couple of days ago. And so we're really, commercially successful. And you might know us, you might not know us, but by like some of the games we made in these years, one is the first game we made. It's a board game. It's called Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. Another one is a free jump and runner FPS called Photonica. Another game we did at the last Global Game Jam was pretty successful. Was featured at Indicade and Fantastic Arcade during a Fantastic Fest. It's called Mirror Moon. It's a sort of a space exploration game, really short story, about 25 minutes. And another game we recently made was Street Song. It's a game, it's a sort of a clash between independent music and independent gaming. We did for Pitchfork, along with the help of Kill Screen magazine from New York City. But broken games, right? As Douglas Wilson defined them at GDC Europe a couple of years ago, broken games are games that, due to a breach in the rules, unclear victory condition, ambiguous rules or ambiguous components, let players interact with the very core nature of what a game is and twist it, turn it around, or simply redefine some of the boundaries in which the game can possibly take place. By any standards, these qualities, if we can call them so, are what we would say it's bad design. It's what we try to avoid when we make a game. But ambiguous rules and ambiguous game components, or unclear victory condition, or no victory condition at all, actually can have some really great and strange surprises for us. And the best way for me to explain it to you, it might be to talk about a little about Button, this game that Doug itself designed to prove part of his theory about broken games. Button means brutally unfair tactics, totally okay now. And it's this digitally mediated party game from 2 to 8 players, where you basically have to either press or defend your button against other players. And you take a couple of steps away from the TV. The TV gives you a sort of a order of some sort to do something, to stand in a certain way, and then suddenly it asks you to push your button or defend your button. What happens in between is really up to players. There are no rules in between. Whatever it is that you do, it's fine. There's nothing there because you are supposed to put something of your own in there, to use your own ideas to twist the game rules and twist them to your advantage in a certain way. So this absence of total systemization, because we are used to have computers in digital game that knows and they are sort of this police thing that enforce rules. And maybe this is not the case. Maybe we should learn to use computers in a different way, not as absolute rulers where they control everything that's going on in the game, but maybe we should be those rulers, as we used to be in folk games, for example. And these kind of games are also contingent to the place where they are played and to the people who's playing with you. And you can see how wrong it can possibly go and how good it can possibly be, Doug's theory about broken games basically rely on 2 other theorists, and one is Annie Heichberg, and that wrote Bodily Democracy, Toward a Philosophy of Sports for All. And I think that the key quote of Eichberg is this one: "The rule is not the game. The flow of the game is in contradiction to the achievement. The game is what starts beyond the rule and beyond the striving for the result, beyond the it. This means that games, first of all, are not and should not be self-explanatory. And that in order for games to take place, there's no need to quantify outcomes. There's no need to tell or to quantify your performance, as there's no need to tell if somebody's winning or not. We don't care. Games happen anyway if people don't win or if you don't know if who won, or whatever. But most of all, he tells us that games are that thing that exists only where they're being played. They're not their components, they're not just the rules, and they're even not just the players, but they're that specific things that happens when they're being played. And just in that moment, you can tell what a game is. Not before, not after, just in that very moment in which we play it. The other theory and what the broken game idea, well, in a certain way, relies on, it's Bernie Decovas' theory of the well-played game, which is, again, about the not importance of winning, but the importance of keep going, of not even necessarily having fun, but being entertained. Because we play to do something we like, whatever it is, even being bored, because in that moment we want to be bored. Who cares? But the important thing to do is not winning, is not competing, is just keep going. This perception of this concept of flow, that's usually associated in games, might as well explain this sort of a everybody wins mechanic. So again, game has no purpose, much as art in a certain way. Games emerge from the mediation between players, rules, and game components. And games are those things that happens when they're played, not before, not after. And the fiction of the game, the consistency of the fiction is more important of the rules. We actually, I like this theory because in the last few years, last 5 or 4 years, we have seen a lot of successful indie games that prove this theory right. Produce, for example, from Ed Key, it's a game where there's not much to do, and still it's beautiful. It's this world where you can just walk around, and still people find it fascinating and find their own ways to discover it, their own meanings. There's no need to give me challenge if the fiction of the game is strong enough to keep me going. Or other games like Johann Sebastian Joust, still by Doug Wilson. It's a game that, again, gives you simple rules and leaves a lot of space in between. And that space is for you to be filled. In this way, we can, in a certain way, go closer to games, to what games are, and be really part of them. Not just enact a certain amount of action, of rules, and to behave how you're expected to behave, and to experience the game how we expected to experience it, and whatever. But we don't even need to go to talk about indie games, because we have proofs of these kind of brokenness in a certain way in previous digital games, like Seaman for Dreamcast. That's really nothing to do with it. It's a really broken Tamagotchi kind of game, but it's fun. It's weird. It has its fictional consistency, and this world of Seaman feels natural in a certain way. But it doesn't really ask you to do much. Or Animal Crossing. Yes, you collect stuff and you plant trees, but if the game would only be that thing, it wouldn't even be successful. There's more to it, and that's more. It's put into from the player perspective. They do it. They put that more. They put their reason to keep playing. So to sum it up, some of the characteristics of broken games could be having no quantifiable outcomes of any sort, There's a limited supervision of the computer in enforcing rules. We have ambiguous rules, ambiguous game components again, and unclear or absent victory condition, and they rely on a strong fiction. To quote Doug again on why it's really important to create a consistent game fiction, in this view, meaning the design of games, the practice of game design become less about crafting system and more about mood setting and instilling into players the appropriate spirit. Because to manage player expectations, it's really important. And when a game looks like it's enabling a certain kind of play and it denies it by limitation, it's really horrible. I was playing this poker game in Red Dead Redemption, and I was winning, right? After some time, I started losing. And I said to myself, wait a minute, I'm in the Wild Wild West, right? Now, if I end this game and I'm not winning, I'm going to shoot everybody in the face and I take my money back. It totally makes sense. It's the Wild Wild West, right? I mean, it's consistent with the fiction of the game. So I did it because I was flipping losing a lot. So I killed everybody and I looked for the money and I got my money back, right? No, there were no money on the table, no money on the bodies of the people, no money under the table. And you know, this made sense to Rockstar because if they allowed players to do so, it would have totally broke the economy of the poker game in Red Dead Redemption. But I don't fucking care. I mean, I'm in the Wild Wild West, right? And I think it's more important that I'm supposed to shoot people and destroy your economy about poker, and that makes a lot much more sense than just denying me the possibility of being in the Wild West, right? And you build these huge games where I'm supposed to be able to do anything, and the most logical thing did not work. Well, maybe I'm crazy, but I mean, I stopped playing. Another way I can talk about how fiction is important to games, to broken games in general, it's by this board game we designed. It's called Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. It's a sci-fi horror board game in which position and identities are concealed because you are on a spaceship in blackout. But you can either be human or alien. Humans need to escape as fast as possible from the ship, and aliens need to track down humans and kill them. And this is really messy, and it's really broken. It has unclear victory condition. It's really easy to cheat. We enforce cheating and we enforce betrayal, and the game can really quickly become imbalanced because you can die like in the third turn of the game, like after 5 minutes. And death is a really severe mechanic because you're out of the game and that's it. But this makes sense because it has fictional meaning. It's about being on that really Scott alien spaceship. It's not about winning. It's not about competing. It's about having an experience of outer space and aliens and being scared. And so it's much more important if you die greatly in the turn and if you feel it was consistent with the atmosphere and with the entire game, rather than feeling empowered to compete with other players. We don't care about that. And it's amazing how many strategies and different ways of play can come out of that were not designed by us, but they were designed by players themselves because it made sense to them. And these strategies emerge from the complexity and the consistency of the game components of the entire world we built. I like this review quote from Shut Up and Sit Down. That's a website about board games. They say, Escape from the Alien simple rule acts like an onion. Each layer you peel away reveals another layer of tactics. And then you get into double bluffs where the humans act like humans, and all this way before we've gone into the territory of mind games where you might act scared or fall silent at the table to fool others and thinking that you're zeroing, on your tender little takeaway of a character. It's great when you see people that actually understand what you did there. And they took the liberty to do whatever was possible with your game structure. And we knew that the game was broken. we knew the game was broken so much that we decided to enforce its brokenness in a certain way through an online map and rule editor, so that the players could not only customize the hell out of it, but understand what kind of structure the game was based on and twist it, and turn it around. And this is a quote I took from the Board Game Geek forum that in a certain way talks about, again, about this fictional consistency. There's this guy asking, we have this foggy end game where 2 humans escape from the ship and they're supposed to be winner, but 3 aliens are dead, and so they lost, but there are 2 winners instead of 1. And 1 human is just trapped since there are more turns, but there's not enough to kill him, but it's still there, so you should stop playing. And this guy tells him, well, thematically, you can interpret as the aliens have eggs on board and humans have 39 minutes to get out before they hatch and swarm the whole ship. There are tons, in this forum, tons of different versions to explain all the possible solutions, winning solutions, if we can call them that way, that come out of escape from the aliens. And all are different, but all are coherent. And that's what we were looking for. And that's what we look for when we make games. So winning, again, not necessary. As Frank Lantz said at MoMA a couple of months ago, winning condition is sort of just a way to let players know that their action have an effect on systems, a way of framing input and outputs, but they are not necessary. We don't necessarily need to design hugely and violently broken things from the ground up. We could also have little broken mechanics. We designed these games, and we had this feature, it was called the beacon, where you can shoot things on the moon, which is yourself, as a sort of a twist. But we don't tell players how to use it. And we didn't really decide how it was supposed to be used. We just gave players this tool so they could use it to orient themselves on the planet. And they simply did it in many different ways. And it was fascinating to see in how many strange and different ways they used beacons to understand where they were standing on the planet. And all these solutions were different from one another. And just a quick video. So we believe that intentionally designed broken games lead to discover new and unexpected mechanics that cannot, as I was telling you before, emerge from playtesting or thinking. So instead of thinking of games and approaching them as containers where we can fill them with our content, in that when we relate to players as they should behave as we want, we should let things go and design potentially broken games that are open to interpretations and of which meaning and outcomes are sort of a part of the mediation process among all game developers. I have an artistic background, and I can't help think this way we approach games is similar to what Marcel Duchamp did with ready-mades in about 1920. And that completely revolutionized the meaning of art itself. And it was not only about questioning the medium he was using and turning it around, but also he understood a very important thing. It might be true for every media, that it's the viewer who made the painting. The creative act, is said, is not formed by the artist alone. The spectator brings the work in contact with the external world by deciphering and interpreting its inner qualifications, and thus adds its contribution to the creative act. Those who look are as important as those who make. So for Duchamp, his work has no retinal value. It wasn't good because it was nice to look at, because it was telling us something just by looking at it. But it was about creating great connections about, between what we see and who we are and our experience in life and with those objects. So the components, as we've seen in games, act as catalysts of the narrative fiction. Whatever it is that we do with them is up to us, and it's fine, whatever it is. So, as he said, our engagement with art is a form of movement, of travel, of journey across time and space towards something that we consider the work of art, these objects. Although that work only exists in our working towards it. As much as games only works in our playing them, and in what we do while we're playing them. The best way for me to explain this is how games can lead to reinterpretation of spaces around you, and how important is what players do, and how empowered they should be, in this case in physical space. This game is called Rialzo. Rialzo is a game that we used to play as kids in Italy. It's a folk game. And you might have a similar game in India too, I believe. It's a sort of a twisted form of tag that we used to play on streets. And you basically have to, Rialzo means to lift up or to move to a higher spot or a higher place. So what you basically do is when someone calls Rialzo, everyone has to move to a higher spot. The last who does is tag, basically. So suddenly, when I say Rialzo, you know, a chair, it makes a lot of difference. In this moment of the Rialzo game, you see the world in a different way. And it's like magic. I mean, it's not just a game. It's something that helps you to understand the world and to go sort of a run away from its convention. And it's not only about the chair, which might be the easy solution, but I had in school when I was teaching people that have experience of the world around you, okay? This is what games are. And whatever, stop worrying and let games happen. Thank you. If you have a question, or rather take them, I'll make this rather quick, but